Yes, thank you for the support in the background. What I'd like to do is just give a high level of what the session is going to be like. And of course, before that, I'll share that this is the International Coaching Week, which is our annual event to celebrate coaching and to continue to create awareness about coaching. My name is George Ngoge. I am a board member of the International Coaching Federation Kenya chapter and past president. And I'm really honored to be the moderator for this conversation. And this week we shall be celebrating, it's a global celebration, and we shall be having different engagements to showcase the impact and the possibilities, what can possibly come out of coaching. And of course, whenever we do have ICF in the month of May, we have people coming together from different organizations, that is coaches, leaders, and different key stakeholders to be able to contribute and to be able to reflect around what has coaching been, what has the impact of coaching been, and what are the possibilities for coaching in their organization, in teams, and of course in the communities in which we live. And today's conversation is going to be an exciting one because we will be talking about the education space. I can see the deck is up, so I'll just quickly, the tech team could help me just go through the slides really quickly, and then we can then of course hand over to the panelists for today. And so this is just a snapshot of the sessions we shall be having this week. We had an amazing session with Jared yesterday, who is our founding president, around speaking and the correlation between leadership and, of course, the power of effectively communicating. We have all these exciting sessions lined up. Tomorrow, we shall have a session with the DEIB Leads Global, and, of course, our very own Ambassador Wangari, which will be really exciting. Look out for that session. Of course, we have a session on educator as a coach, and we also have team coaching with Coach Abbas. And of course, we will be doing something with all-round human-centered AI. That is on Friday at 1 to 2 p.m. So this particular ICW, we picked the lunch and learn concept, whereby we have our lunch slots. We have our lunch slots where we're able to learn as we learn. Lynn, maybe you want to give me a prompt. I have a feeling that there's something I need to bring in, or are we good so far on the tech side?
We are good so far. Thank you, George. Maybe if you can allow me to quickly brush over housekeeping. Hello, everyone. Very glad to have you here with us today. Very excited for the conversation that is awaiting us, as are our speakers. Before we begin, just a quick note that this session will be recorded with the intention of later being able to publish it on the YouTube channel. So keep note of that. But even with that said, we would love to have you all join the room. So if your bandwidth allows, go right ahead and share your, switch your camera on. We will share the backgrounds on the chat in case you want to also place them up. Please keep your mics muted unless we call upon you maybe to ask or respond to a question or during the discussion sessions. And otherwise, we look forward to having an engaging conversation and intend to keep time. And we very much welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for getting us situated with regards to how we shall conduct ourselves on the call. And of course, without further ado, now we want to quickly introduce the speakers. And before I do that, allow me just to quickly share, or maybe tech team, you could help me share the link to all the different sessions. Somebody could be on the call and wondering, how can I be able to join the other sessions? So kindly, if you can, kindly share the link to the sessions that shall happen subsequent to this session. And then with that done, I will actually now quickly introduce the speakers or the facilitators for this exciting lunch and learn topic. And of course, for me, the youth is a particular group that is very close to my heart. The youth are the future. And you know, in this part of the world, it's not just a cliche or a catchphrase that we can use, but they literally are. With the country's population or our continental population of being in the teens, last time I checked, I think Kenya, the average age was 19. And then, of course, we have our neighbors in Uganda, who I think the average age is 17, if not 16. And of course, this is pretty much the pattern across the board. So we have a very youthful population, and with that exists the greatest opportunity, of course, for our future. But also in that, and as we have recently seen in some of the events happening in the political space, there also exists a challenge. And so to really come and just give more context and light into this exciting topic, we have two very, very powerful coaches and trainers and speakers. That's quite a combination. Coaches, we'll confirm whether you're coaches first. Trainers and coach trainers and speakers, among many other things. And of course, they both have been very, very instrumental in my own personal development. I'm just going to quickly give a run through of their bios just for the sake of those who may not have met our wonderful speakers before. And then, of course, we shall give them an opportunity to come on and speak. So Dr. Jaki Wasike-Sihanya is a leadership coach. She's a mentor, she's a trainer, facilitator, and an author with a deep passion for helping young people build agency and thrive. She is the creator of Africa First, that is a dual certified adolescent and young adult coach diploma, through which she's building a network of ethically grounded coaches equipped to support adolescents across the country. Dr. Jaki is a strong advocate for moving young people from dependency to independent thinking, and her work continues to shape the future of youth coaching in Africa. And I believe that's just a little snippet of her whole profile. She is the one or the first person I've met who is a doctor and not, as we typically know, PhD, but she is an EDD holder, among many other amazing credentials. So we look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Jaki. And of course, joining her is Anyima Okundi, who is an executive and leadership coach, coach, supervisor, faculty member, and passionate youth growth champion. She brings a strong systems lens to adolescent coaching and has been actively championing psychologically safe coaching spaces for young people, particularly through her work around the tragic relationship between adolescents, parents, and coaches. So please join me in welcoming these two incredible voices in youth coaching. And sit tight, I hope you have your favorite drink. And it is a lunch and learn, so you will be allowed to, have a little bit of something through as you get fed, to feed your body as you get fed mentally, spiritually, and of course in your mind. So over to you, Dr. Jaki and Anyima, to take us through this session.
Thank you very much. Lynn, I think we can go to the presentation.
For a minute there, I couldn't unmute myself. I was like, what's going on? Okay, welcome everybody. We're so excited, Jaki and myself, to have the privilege, really, and the honor to talk for maybe just under an hour about something we're both passionate about. So we're very excited. And we know that George and Lynn will keep us in check so that we don't go over time. So can we go to the next slide? We are really grateful for all of you who have showed up today, and really just quickly running through what we're going to be covering today, really to define, first of all, who are adolescents and young adults? Who are we referring to when we say that? Looking a little bit at the power dynamics, wanting to understand what these adolescents and young adults are carrying, and really the crux of this time together for those of us who are coaches, those who are not, contracting. This is the agreement that really defines how this relationship between a coach, a trainer, a teacher, whoever you want to call it, and a parent and that adolescent or young adult works, and how it really holds that relationship to be safe. We'll look at some pitfalls, and then we'll also look at the implications they hold for our practice. Next slide. I think most people have checked in with their name, maybe where you're dialing from, but we'd love for you to put in the chat one word that describes a fond. Take note of the word fond, adolescent memory. Just one word that may describe that. Let's see what's coming in. Jaki, what's one word for you?
Playing outside. Okay, those are two.
Playing outside, inside, in the mud, in the water. Yes. Okay. So George says discovery. Diana says pet. Oh, yes, the pet. Lena says curiosity. I'm seeing another independence. Oh, Mary, movies, right? I don't know if anybody's watched the latest Michael movie, but it brought back so many memories. Friendships, yeah, that's a good one. Love, Clemencia, thank you. Love, young love, puppy love, neighborhood, yeah, the neighborhood and the relationships that we formed. Freedom. Kananu says freedom. Friendships, friends, innocence from Kizito. Thank you for that. Okay, really, really interesting. Lynn, unmute and tell me about this. Funkies. Oh, okay, tell me. It's a Kenyan thing.
Sorry. Yes, yes. I don't know if others could relate. But when I was in boarding school, we would have occasional functions going out to other schools, preferably of the opposite gender. And that was a very fun experience that we looked forward to, funkies, as we called them.
Oh, nice. I've learned something. We have the same in Ghana, by the way. I didn't go to boarding school here, but I did in Ghana. So I get it. And see, the hearts and the celebrations are coming in there. We relate. Adventure, Miriam says, okay. So we're getting a sense of, for yourself, the fondness, that memory that is being evoked. Kathy, summer festivals and street food. Yes. And I don't know about the rest of you, but street food, growing up, I know my mom would always feel like, no, it's not hygienic, but it was the most tastiest. Oh, the flies are on it, but that's the one we wanted to eat. It was yummy. So, over to the next slide.
Yes, and Lynn, if you could just show the next slide, because here we just want to spend a little bit of time, in fact, just a minute or so to really define who we are speaking about in this presentation. As you can see, when we talk about adolescents, the age range actually goes all the way from 10, as defined by UNICEF, to 34, 35 years. But for purposes of this presentation, we would like you to keep in mind the ages between 15 and 25. And that is still quite a broad range, because here you have got people who are still in high school, you have got people who might be in university, and you may also have people who are at work. So for those of you who are doing executive coaching, you may actually be dealing with this generation that we are talking about, even though they are not necessarily referred to as adolescents. We talk about young adults or emerging adults, but a lot of the principles that we are going to talk about in this presentation apply to them. Let's move on to a quick discussion. So here, I think, Anyima, you're going to help us by looking at what people share. Okay, yes, we are going to do a Menti. So the
Lynn
question,
help us.
if you could just go back to the previous slide, Lynn, just for people to see what we are asking them to do.
What emotion is up there, Jackie?
Yes, so we are asking you to think about what emotion or what thought arises when you consider the relationship between coaches and adolescents, or coaches and young adults. What emotion or what thought? Just one word, and we have a Menti. You could go to menti.com, put in that code, and in a short while, we are going to see what words or what emotions are coming up. So what emotion or what thought arises when you consider the relationship between coaches and adolescents or young adults?
Oh,
interesting.
Nice.
Christabel, I hope you're able to share with us that screen.
Yes, I think it's coming up, Lynn. We can see it.
It's showing.
Anyima, what's coming up for you when you see these words?
I'm seeing the biggest word, the elephant in the room, right? Which is why we are here, really. But all the words I think we can relate to. In fact, they have contributed one way or another, whether we felt them ourselves or been in spaces where somebody else has felt them in relation to this work, which has made us actually come up and really put a lot of time and passion into not only the diploma and certificate that we facilitate, but into speaking about it. First, Dr. Jaki, as her research, and me from just experience and passion and coming together for this very reason. So, yeah, I think we are right on the money, Jaki, as we look at these.
Yeah. Yes, and hopefully by the end of this session, maybe some of that anxiety, fear, and uncertainty will have resolved. But I'm also curious to know, and I know we don't have the time for this, so maybe it can be for another time to really just try and unpack where that is coming from. And maybe then we could already start thinking.
They can put in the chat, Jaki, if they'd like to, where it's coming from, even as we go on. We can check it later.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think actually the conversation could actually continue in the breakout session, because we are going to have a very we are going to have a very quick discussion. I think we agreed that we're just going to do it on the chat. Just thinking about I mean, as coaches, and even if you're not a coach over here, really, when we are talking about adolescents, there is a parent somewhere in the background. And because we are talking about coaching, we also have obviously there's the coach, and then there's the adolescent. And also just keeping in mind those emotions and those words that came up in the word cloud. We just want to hear very briefly from you in the chat. What you think are the critical differences in this three-way relationship of the coach, the adolescent, and the parent when you compare it to the same relationship in executive coaching? What's the difference? There's a three-way relationship in executive coaching, sponsor, a client, coach, and we have parent, adolescent, and coach in adolescent coaching. What do you think are the critical differences?
Yeah. Or what stands out that you think you need to pay attention to in each? So Diana says parent, coach, and adolescent. Yeah, and what's the difference there, Diana, between this and executive coaching? What would you say? Add that in the chat. Ingrid says power. Diana says agency with the adolescent. Can you tell us a bit more what you mean by agency? In what regard?
With the adolescent, you are more than likely going to be having someone who's resident with the parent at home. And therefore, even as the coaching relationship may be developed, there's a sense that you don't necessarily have the space to walk away from a different way of thinking. It's very guided by your environment, your parents, your home. That's what I'm speaking about in terms of agency.
Thank you so much, Diana. We are seeing here as well, emotions can be high from Kananu. In that relationship, boundary roles are super blurry from Lina. Mukami says the power dynamic is different. Okay. Can you speak to that a little bit, Mukami?
Absolutely, yes. With this type of, with the adolescents, you have this person is younger, has less life experience, and the coach is, an older person. And so there is, the power over, and this is a young person who's also experienced, teachers, parents, everyone seems to have more power than them. And so just managing that in a way that then you're able to be communicating and helping each other out, it needs a lot of, I think, humility from the coach.
Ooh, I like that. The H word. Great. Thank you,
For that.
Mukami. Zainab says perspective and experience. Thank you. And Kizito says structured feedback in executive coaching while alignment with parent. ... is, I feel like there's a bit more to be said there, Kizito. Would you like to finish that sentence? And Dixon says suspicion. There's suspicion in that relationship, that three-way relationship. Okay. Okay.
I think Lynn can move on to the next slide, and Kizito, if you want to finish your statement, you can go on in the chat. But in fact, you have got it. I mean, a lot of what you have said is really what we were going to share. When you think about executive coaching, the contracts are often optional in the sense that, you know, I'm employed by this person. They cannot force me to do coaching. I can always leave my employee if I want. So adults have got exit options. But it's also that in terms of how organizations influence your client, it's really around influencing your client's behavior. But when you look at the adolescent, first of all, the adolescent is developing. Therefore, the relationship is also developmental because, you know, it's like holding a piece of liver. You know, you can never really hold it completely. You have to keep on moving. And actually here, dancing in the moment becomes really, really critical because they are developing the way they think, the choices they make, how they view themselves is not permanent. But I think it was Diana who said this adolescents cannot exit their parents. They don't have that option. Yeah. And the organization, if you think about the family as the organization, it is shaping their identity, it is shaping or controlling their security, and it is also shaping their belonging. So it's not just a question of influencing their behavior, but it's really integral to how they're developing. And that makes it a much more sensitive relationship, as we are going to see in the next slide. Liz, if you could just move to the next slide. And I think somebody also talked about power. In this,
Yes.
in this relationship, power is asymmetrical. The parent has got what we call structural power. They control resources. They control whether or not that coaching is going to be paid for. And in fact, especially when you're thinking about the younger adolescent, the way they come to coaching is because the parent decides they need to come to coaching. Yeah. And the parent also controls rules and consequences, not only related to coaching, but also at home. This power is not negotiated. This power is vested in the parent, you know, by virtue of their being a parent, and it exists. It actually exists before the coaching relationship. As we said, it is not optional, and it is actually backed by real world consequences for the adolescent. When you look at the coach has professional authority, not just from the fact that they are trained as coaches, they have expertise, they have ethical credibility, but also because they are can we call them the boundary managers in this situation? They cannot change the relationship between the adolescent and the parent, but their role is actually to manage those boundaries so that coaching can happen. For the adolescent, and I think somebody said this, somebody talked about adolescent agency, they have emerging agency. They have control over whether or not they show up for coaching, whether they are going to trust this activity or this engagement. They have control over their developing values, identity, and meaning. But this is actually constrained by the structural power of the parent. So what are we saying? That an adolescent may come to coaching, and I think we have had these experiences. If you have ever coached adolescents, and I think Anyima has had a similar experience, where a parent will suggest that their adolescent needs to come for coaching, but then the parent wants to sit, wants to put the adolescent in the dining room during coaching sessions, and you as the coach, you can sort of see their shadow in the background as the adolescent is being coached, because they really feel that they have the right to know everything that is happening with this adolescent, and the adolescent doesn't really have the power to fight this. So you can see that in this relationship, there are so many moving parts, and that's why Anyima was talking about, a system. We are really talking about systemic coaching or systems within this relationship. Lynn, we can move on to the next to the next one.
Yeah.
Anyima, I think this is
Thank
for
you.
you.
Yeah. Wow, we need a whole day. Well, one day we'll do like a seminar, half-day conference. But yes, so as we look and now contemplate that if you choose to coach in this demography, you are really coaching a system. A lot of us are now trained as team coaches, systemic team coaches. So there is a system in this relationship, of whom one of those is that young adult or adolescent. So it's really important to understand what is going on. And we know that between those ages of, say, let's talk the teenage, even 13, all the way to 28, I would say, 26, 28, where this prefrontal executive function of our brains is still developing, then we are exploring who we really are, okay? The younger bracket will test boundaries. When we're older, we're holding down jobs, we have a family, maybe we're a little less reluctant to test, but testing boundaries is part of that developmental process. Neurodevelopmentally, emotional systems mature earlier than the prefrontal sort of decisive executive control systems. So we see it, the older we are, as impulsive. That is how we interpret it, or inconsistent, rebellious. But that testing of boundaries is necessary to understand who you are. Reevaluating inherited beliefs. So earlier we had talked about, in the executive coaching relationship, the organization is giving some behavioral sort of nuances and blueprints that we must adhere to. But for the young adult or adolescent, there's inherited beliefs and life systems that they are evaluating, that the consequences are much more far-reaching than just deciding my values don't align with this organization, I'm walking away. And I would also like to note that this is more prevalent in our African cultural context. I think in the Western context, there are many more young people who at a younger age will be like, they can divorce parents, there's a lot more that goes on, that even though we try to say, let's consider in our culture, there's a big impact of not ditching your inherited beliefs, systems, and patterns. And so at this age, they're also trying to negotiate their own independence, even though they're still dependent. And so we start to see an emergent profile of the space we hold as coaches with this demography. Yeah, as Jaki was saying, it's more than just the context of a contract. There's a systems lens that as coaches, we hold with even deeper consideration for parent and the adolescent in that equation. Next slide, please. So it has already been mentioned, but just again to reiterate, that the context for adolescents is quite different than even young adults. So a young adult, we would think about that recent graduate, perhaps, who has just gotten their first job, in an organization. Think of the age 21 to 23, 24. So they have some choice. They're earning, they can move out of home. But for adolescents, they lack full legal autonomy. They live within ongoing authority structures. Who is paying for my roof over my head? Who's giving me pocket money, even to go to meet that coach, even if it's a coaching session that is in the coach's office, for example. For the adolescents, coaching is often externally initiated by a parent, but also for that young adult who has a line manager. They may be on the graduate program, they are hypo, so they're on a program where, oh, we're giving you a coach because it's part of the program. So sometimes there's no choice. The outcome of the coaching affects multiple stakeholders, and the exit from the system, especially when we're talking about adolescents in particular, is not available. So these are things that we need to be considering when we're thinking about, so what's going on in this system? And when we look at, therefore, let's go to the next slide. What happens? How is it affecting this relationship? Now, even as coaches, one of the things that an adolescent may look at, or even that young adult, is that all coaches are also hold that elder identity in their mind. So their tendency would be to comply, and so if you notice in that engagement that perhaps, yeah, somebody is, yes, I'm here. I mean, some of us have experienced that with mature adults who are on a coaching trajectory that they didn't choose, but it's even more so with the adolescents. And the duality of that is it's not only parents who could be seen that way, but even you as coach could be seen as complicit with the parent because you're older, and they will tend to view it that way. There could be a passive resistance, therefore, to engage, or let's keep it surface level. Yes, mom, my parents want me here to figure out what I'm going to do in university. Okay, yes. Somebody said earlier that there's that knowledge of having, I think it was George, a teacher authority. And sometimes the coach is viewed that way as well. And so the coaching engagement can be seen to go well. Oh, he's made all the changes, but there's a rapid relapse. Once that authority figure or relationship is not there, has true change really happened? And this is why this topic is really important. Next slide. As we look at these relationships. So with the little that you've learned so far, what would be the implications, therefore, for how we need to contract when we are working with this demography? Now, I want to check with Lynn, are we going to do the breakout room, or should this just be put in the chat?
I believe it will be best if we can have this discussion together in room.
Okay.
But perhaps people can unmute and share.
Please, we'd love to hear some voices. So please, what do you think would be the implications for contracting, therefore, what we've looked at so far in adolescent coaching? What do we need to pay attention to? Real quickly, a few thoughts.
Okay, let me see. I guess people are still thinking. Okay, so Inge talks about confidentiality. Absolutely. This is, of course, this is true of any coaching relationship, but it's even more critical when it comes to adolescents, because they're already suspicious because they know their parent came to you. Setting strong boundaries, exactly. We mentioned that the coach is a boundary manager, so to speak, making sure that the adolescent feels safe, but the parent also feels that their interests are being taken into consideration. Safety, particularly with those adolescents who are minors, any adolescent who is under 18, the involvement of the parent. This is an interesting one because you have to think about how is the parent to be involved. And we have some interesting stories about parents who think they need to be involved in ways that are not, can I say, coaching friendly. Clarity that the benefit is for the teen. Yes, important to have that three-way conversation in advance so that the teen is also sold in So we talk about informed consent. Even if the teen is a minor and they cannot sign the contract, they need to give their informed consent. Rapport building with especially in order to just make sure that we collapse that inherent hierarchy that exists because of our culture, where the adult is automatically considered to be right, to know best, needs to be deferred to. Mary says, perhaps what they are not speaking outrightly, listen to the subtext. Yes, it's really critical to tease out, to really make the teen or the adolescent comfortable to speak their mind. Again, this is partly because of conditioning, cultural conditioning, where the teenagers or the adolescents are sort of expected to just shut up and listen to what their elders are saying. So when you invite them into a space where you say, you're free here, you can say whatever you want, they approach it with caution, and you really have to help them see that you're serious about what you're talking. Yes, safe space, not parent proxy. Managing immature minds. Yes, we've talked about developing. These are developing minds. Aside from everything else that we have said, we really need to manage that. I don't know if there's anything else.
We need to move on.
But as we are on that topic, maybe we can go to the next slide. Lynn, yes. So when you're contracting, you need to consider these 3 levels. So there's your contract as the coach with the parent who is the sponsor of this engagement. Here we are talking about what is the scope, how many sessions, in terms of reporting, what will you be reporting? Here it is quite similar to executive coaching, but when it comes to boundaries, I think we need to pay particular attention. First of all, because coaches often are already inherently included in a relationship with the parent that came to them. So you're coaching your friends' children. Sometimes you're even coaching your relatives. So there's already a certain relationship. There are already certain boundaries that you need to either disengage from or make very, very clear. Then, of course, there's the relationship between the adolescent and the coach. And here, the coach must really pay attention to the adolescent's psychological safety, with their demeanor, even from first meeting, where there's a big difference between, hey, your mom told me you're coming. Why are you being so difficult? You don't want to go to school. Versus, just being very professional and saying, hello, Anyima, thank you very much for showing up. Please have a seat. Little things like that we have to pay attention to. We have to be sure about the voluntariness of the adolescent, that they're not just being forced to come to coaching, that they really understand what coaching is, and that they are ready to own it, because we say coaching is a client-driven agenda, a client-driven relationship. So helping the adolescent to understand the work that they will be expected to do. And then there is also just that facilitating the parent-adolescent relationship, where you have that shared understanding of the purpose of the engagement. This again is very, very critical, so that the adolescent does not feel that you're there to report on them. If we move to the next slide, this is just talking about some of the critical pitfalls or the critical things that we need to watch out for. Lynn, I don't know, your slide has not moved.
Yes, unlearning that we need to do, yeah.
Yes. You saw in the agenda we talked about pitfalls, and Anyima talked about a lot of unlearning that we need to do. It's so much more. Let me say, it's so much easier to get into this role of advising. I think George talked about teaching, protecting, correcting, and then also mothering or fathering these adolescents. I mean, you're coaching a 23-year-old, and meanwhile, you have a 23-year-old in your own house. You need to pay extra attention to the possibilities of transference, to really how you view this person ahead of you. Much as we are saying that they're developing, they also have agency, and to really trust that, much in the same way that you would trust an adult, a fully adult client, really trusting that this person has got the capacity to reflect, to make certain choices. Of course, there may be some differences in the way you support the adolescent, maybe a little bit more role play, helping them to practice conversations that they might have with their parents. But it's really important to make sure that we don't fall into those that we don't fall into those roles, and pastoring as well. That's another role that it's very easy to fall into when we are dealing with these adolescents. So
Next.
I think you can see just in a nutshell that yes, your competencies as a coach may not be very different from what you need to coach an adolescent and a young adult. But I think you have seen from the conversation we have that it is critical to have developmental literacy, just understanding who these people are, why they keep changing their mind, what is going on with them, what context they are growing up in. And that's where we focus on systems thinking, ethical clarity in terms of boundary management. I don't think we can overemphasize this, but also bringing in our cultural awareness, some of the, just beginning to understand the relationships between the adolescents and their parents and the families that they're going back to versus what you're trying to develop with them in the coaching space. And then it's also important for you as a coach to have a certain level of tolerance for ambiguity. And when we say this, we just mean that, don't be surprised if you have a conversation with your clients today about this, and then tomorrow they just seem to be in a completely different space. You need to be, let me say, maybe more patient, more aware of what is going on with them, so that then you don't fall into that advising, mothering, pastoring role. And at that point, I think we can open to questions and comments.
I'll just add one thing, which is this systems awareness. So much like in team coaching, when you're going to start work with a team, best practice is to have maybe a 15-20-minute conversation with all the members of the team or the important stakeholders to gather their view on what's going on. I think our normal practice, especially when we're approached, oh, can you help my teenager who is making decisions about uni to figure out, okay, we assume we know. And so that's it feels like an easy entry into that contract. And so we'll say, yes, okay. And we may say, I'm not going to be telling you much, but take those few extra minutes to talk to mom and understand her perspective, talk to dad if that's needed, and talk to the adolescent before bringing them together, because you will gather a bigger and clearer picture of the system that you are dealing with. And that empowers then the possibility of transformation in the way that system requires. So take a bit more time to be curious about this system that you are walking into, because it's a powerful one, and it is one that really has an impact on your client in this demography. So questions, comments, thoughts?
Anyima, actually, you already answered this question. Dixon asked, can you share an example of systems thinking? It's like you read his mind.
Yes, I think that has been the biggest pitfall in a lot of the work and even supervision that I do. That it's that paying attention to what was the system about? Yeah, what do you know about the system that you are engaged with? Yeah.
And I think maybe, Anyima, just to add on to that, we mentioned that especially adolescents will come to you through, their parents or your friends. Part of the system is also understanding the things that you're going to learn about these parents, about these friends of yours who are raising this adolescent that has come to you for coaching, and the impact that it can have on you and that relationship between you and those people. And this is an aspect of coaching adolescents and young adults that doesn't really show up when it comes to executive coaching.
That's very true, Jackie. And I'm really glad you mentioned it because it's one of the big ones that you need to exercise caution. And it is true. And probably it's becoming more, a little bit more, less, parents feel safer, maybe having a coach whom they think they know. There's some familiarity to work with their child. That's why this comes up. So they may not know you, but they may know you of you. Like any of you maybe might say, oh, Coach Jackie, my sister's son is going through a rough time. I know you do this work. But the other side of that is, as a coach, you're working with the unknowns that you don't expect. We need to maintain our professionalism. And there's this phrase we all know, that client is creative, resourceful, and whole. We need to stay on the professional track when working with this demography. We tend to feel like we know, either because we've been parents, we know what they are struggling with. And so we let our guard down, and we've been in situations where we are either supervising, mentoring, or sorting out a letting of the guard down and missing a systemic information that would even help you to say, maybe this adolescent, it's not a coach that they need. Yeah. And we're also not saying coaching is the be all and end all. Sometimes what that adolescent needs is a mentor, or they need something else. Right. So it is only when you engage with the system and get a bit of a broader picture that you can also make that more informed decision.
Okay, Flo says this has been extra insightful. Thank you. Thank you, Florence. We are happy if it has, if you have picked something from it, and thank you for the compliment.
Yeah.
There's a question, is there an age limit for coaching an adolescent, especially the lower side? Okay, I think we shared earlier on the definition of adolescents, really UNICEF starting from age 10, and some governments going up to age 35. But developmentally, I think if you're going into coaching adolescents, really we are looking at those teen years, but also thinking about their life stage. Some maybe 13, 14-year-olds might still be in primary school. So in principle, there's no reason why you shouldn't coach them. But if you're going below 14, 13, their needs might actually be different because they're still children. And I think that's a rather different conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Dixon.
So we would really say,
Yes,
we
thank you.
say from age 16, yeah, upwards of 26. So that's what we would be dealing with, yeah.
Caroline, thank you. I'm happy
Thank
that
you.
you've got some information some perspectives that you can apply. Thank you, Sarah. Lena, you're talking about social media. Do you see this as part of the system, especially in the teenage years? Yes, Anyima, I think you can pick that up. She's asking about social media and friends. Yeah.
I think we really expound on that in both the certificate and the diploma. It is part of the system. In this case, not necessarily of the contracting, but a huge part of the work that you'll be sort of dealing with on the journey. So yes. George is here. It means our time is up.
Oh man, I get to be the person who, draws this to a close. Not a very good role, but I will graciously accept it because I know we can continue to speak about this for hours, and rightfully so. In fact, as was said earlier on, Anyima, we probably need to look into a workshop, either a half-day workshop, probably even more than that. And the big thing that I'm taking from this conversation is the fact that, honestly speaking, over the years, I've always thought of youth coaching, and now adolescents coaching as something that is extremely noble. And I salute all the people who do this amazing work as coaches. And of course, for yourself, Dr. Jackie and Anyima, for training coaches. But what I'm picking from this conversation is that none of us are safe. We all, so to speak, have a role. We all are called to actually take up the opportunity to be able to coach and to work with young people and the youth. And that's the biggest takeout I'm taking from this. So I'm conscious of time.
Yeah, there's a big need.
There's a very big need. So I think we need to have more conversation with you, and perhaps we could actually see then how do we go further, because um, the dynamics I'm picking up, especially around the fact that like what we talk about, the coach, coachee, and I guess sponsor are
Mhm.
so different. The sponsor and the client may not be speaking on speaking terms for an extended
Right?
period of time, among other stories. So it's quite complex. It can get very complex. And so it's very important to be able to have the skills to navigate. And I would like to say that this, of course, is a snapshot of what you do with the amazing work you're doing with the LCC diploma. And the details, and maybe you could request for them to be shared up again on the chat on how anybody who's interested in pursuing the LCC certificate in coaching adolescents and young adults from life skills coaching. You can just pick up the details there, the contact details there, and of course you can have more conversations, perhaps even a cup of tea or coffee to really go deeper.
Please.
Yes, and
Mhm.
see how you could actually be able to get equipped and actually get the right skills, tools, and capacity to be able to support this very important group of our community. So, Lynn, I believe we're doing fairly well on time. With that, I think we could probably use a little bit of a time to just draw the spotlight on the upcoming sessions. I believe that should be okay, Lynn. Is that right?
Yes, that would be okay. Thank you so much, Anyima and Jaki. I personally had another question, but I think I will see you behind the tent. And we appreciate this session very much.
Thank you.
I'll share shortly.
Not a problem.
Okay.
So thank you very much. And so the ICW journey continues. We invite you to join us on the continuing sessions that are coming. Of course, we will share again the link. We have one link that you can actually use to register for all the sessions. I believe it's been put up on the chat right now. And then, of course, feel free to follow us on different social media platforms, especially LinkedIn, which I think will have a lot of good content there, and to be able to connect with the different speakers and people who will be giving us resources. And so you're more than welcome to participate. And there's one other event that we have next week, which I think will be a great engagement, which is the ICF Summit in partnership with the Strathmore Business School at Strathmore Business School. And I welcome you to each take the opportunity to come along and join the conversation with coaches and other stakeholders around how we could make coaching be more impactful, and continue to follow our theme. Our theme is very clear, which is, of course, to inspire. Lynn, I can never get it right. Let me try it again. Inspire, transform, and thrive. I think I got it right this time. To inspire, transform, and thrive. So let's each seek to see how we can be able to inspire, transform, and thrive in every space we are as coaches, and to be able to create and spread the fire of coaching. And so with that said, it looks like we shall have time to wash our lunch dish, because it was a lunch and learn, and get back to our desks. But I'm going to just give it back to Anyima and Dr. Jaki. If they have any parting shots before we then, of course, formally close the session.
Well, I put a parting shot in the chat, and I'll say it verbally, is coaches already qualified. We have the ICF accredited certificate. It's 2.5 days only. So you will be adding to, and you'll get to have that CAYC designation, which is coach for adolescent and youth. So, I mean, invest in it. You may not be in the space where you are fully coaching in the demography, but all of us have access to. And so it's important information that will only enhance the spaces you hold and help you to equip even the adults you coach if they have questions around that, to understand, more about the skills required for this demography. So thank you so much for having us. Jaki?
Yes, I
Thank you,
think I
Lynn.
can only say that if the future of Africa matters to you, then you should be concerned about how we are holding space for this demography that makes up more than half of the population. And if you want to hold space for them properly, yes, you are a coach, but maybe think about those additional competencies or those additional skills that you can bring to the table to make sure that you're doing it in a skillful, ethical, and I think also empathetic way. Thank you so much for having us today, and I hope we can see you again discuss this topic even more deeply. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr. Jaki. Thank you.
Thank you.